If you've ever been in a toxic relationship with a book series, one where you know it's not good for you, but you keep coming back anyway because everyone around you is obsessed, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I'm reviewing Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. And no, I did not enjoy it. Welcome back to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today, unfortunately, we are talking about Onyx Storm. This is the most recent release in this series, and I must say, I hated it. I did not read Onyx Storm because I was particularly engaged with the storyline. I don't love this series very much, but because it is the most talked about book on the internet at the moment, I felt the need to read it. I have, of course, read the first two books in the series. I enjoyed Fourth Wing the most so far. I had my issues with it, and I was hoping that the books would get better, but I feel like the second one was a big letdown. A lot of my issues with the first book were actually magnified in the second book. The third book has some of those problems too. There are some moments where there is a bit of redemption, and I especially thought that around the last 100 pages or so, we finally started to make some real progress. I did think that structurally there were some elements in this one that I enjoyed a little more, but by and large, I do not like this book, and I do not like this series. Even with those changes that I do think make it better, it struggles from the same problem all throughout, and that is just really, really, really bad dialogue. It's painful. It is just so cringy. I can't stand it. And you know what? I'm talking too much without me doing my usual. Let's start with giving you at least a synopsis of it. I will give you now spoiler alert warnings. I think I don't know. I don't know what you consider a spoiler for a book series like this. But since you can't walk through a bookstore or open TikTok or sit through a casual fantasy rec list without being bombarded by these books, I feel the need to cover it. And as someone who reads everything, especially fantasy, I feel obligated to stay in the loop, including on this one. Now, here's the thing. I hated Iron Flame because it was bloated, it was slow, so I didn't go into Onyx Storm with high expectations. But even then, I still wasn't prepared for how disappointed I was. With that being said, here is my summary. Onyx Storm picks up exactly where Iron Flame left off, which is to say right in the middle of utter chaos. Violet Sorrengail, our endlessly traumatized yet weirdly overpowered heroine, is reeling from betrayal and war and some magical revelations, as well as the eternal hot and cold routine with Xaden. The world is supposedly on the brink of destruction, but most of the characters still have plenty of time to banter, sulk, and of course for some real intimate time. Although I don't know if I would describe those inappropriate scenes as intimate as much as just disturbing in many cases. The book promises to be the most explosive installment yet, and to its credit, there is more happening here than in Iron Flame. We get a few new characters who seem mildly interesting until most of them disappear for large chunks of the book. Violet continues to battle Venin and to question authority and to struggle with her powers and deliver a steady stream of emotionally redundant internal monologue. There is a war going on, but good luck keeping track of the actual strategies. There's a rebellion, although it often feels more like a high school clique with wings. And while the world is supposedly crumbling, we spend chapter after chapter caught in endless emotional cycles. Xaden won't open up, Violet won't trust him, they argue, they kiss, they push each other away, rinse, repeat, and blah, blah, blah. It is one of the things that I hate most about this book. As for the last 100 pages, they do something. They actually wake up, the pacing improves, the characters make real decisions, and the story starts to feel like it matters. A few reveals actually work. There's a twist involving Violet's family that adds a welcome emotional layer, and the ending, it's still a bit dramatic, but at least it left me thinking, okay, maybe there's something here. And so I go into the next book, whenever that comes out, with a little more hope, with the anticipation that maybe she could finally do in the last book what I was hoping all along, and to improve upon the flaws that I saw in the first book, but what I overall actually enjoyed from the first book. I do think that Onyx Storm is better than Iron Flame. I still hated it. I hated how bloated this book is, similar to Iron Flame. I hate how the characters talk in endless circular conversations that never go anywhere. I hate how the world building is barely holding itself together, with rules that shift depending on what the plot needs in the moment. I hate the inconsistent tone. One minute it's a serious war drama, the next it's quippy romance novel cosplay, again without actual quality quippiness. I will say that I listened to this book, and I don't want to say much about the narrator because she is an artist in her own right doing her own thing, but the amount of times that she is just yelling is so painful to listen to. It was one of the cringiest things. And I think sometimes that yelling made sense. It was meant to convey some kind of sense of urgency, or maybe it was part of some kind of conflict or war. But also, it just seemed like a lot of yelling to try to make Violet a more interesting character than she ultimately is. I know it's popular. I know people love it. I can't shake the feeling that we've all been collectively hypnotized by the shiny covers, or I don't know, the limited edition, or the fan art or something. I don't know. I honestly just don't know why this is appealing to people. It's trying to be Harry Potter meets Throne of Glass meets The Hunger Games meets 50 Shades of Grey, and it ends up being just fan fiction of all of them with none of the clarity or structure that actually made those series more interesting to read. The romance, which should be the emotional heart of the series, is very repetitive and very frustrating. Violet and Xaden have the same argument in at least 6 different locations. The supporting characters have flashes of depth that are constantly pushed aside for relationship drama as usual. I also just don't understand Violet's interactions or relationship with everyone else in her squad. They supposedly have some depth to them by what she says, but nothing about their interactions reveal there to be any real depth there. Something else that I really don't like is they've suddenly expanded. You see you see a little bit of this in the second book, and this third book they do it more so of suddenly trying to expand this to actually have a courtly presence and trying to not even really explain the structure, the political or military structure of the world in which they live, but they do acknowledge that they still want there to be kings and barons and people of high position in society. They really want that, and so they just randomly throw it in there, and I just think it is terrible. And I just think it is terribly done. I don't think that it was well thought out. It was a desire to have something that is seen in better works, and instead of, I don't know, either foregoing it or actually putting some thought into it, they just kind of cram it in there. Suddenly Xaden is now some really important level of aristocracy that is a rival to the throne in a way that was not evident in the first book. And I just don't like that. I just think it is poorly done. But above all, I think I just really hated the cringy conversations. That is the thing that I will never be able to get over with these books. Because that must be desirable to the people that read it. And that's probably where I will always just be so confused, is how this must be a feature, not a bug for some people. So to me, after I read the first book, I thought, okay, if we could just make those conversations a little more interesting, a little more realistic, a little less stilted, and a little more true to their form. So when she says they were witty, or when she says they said something sarcastically, it actually should just come off sarcastically. You don't need to say the word sarcastic anywhere in your description. That is part of being a good writer. And that's what I was hoping I would see in these. And it's never happened. They've remained these painful conversations to read. And so I'm just curious, is that actually the appealing part to people? Or are you also sitting back saying, well, I don't love the conversations. They're not great, but I love all this other stuff. And if it is a feature and not a bug to you, I guess just please try to help me understand. I don't know if you can in the comments, but give it a try. Help me understand why these ridiculous conversations that are just so hard to engage with could be what you want out of these book series. Please let me know. I would really appreciate it, so that maybe I could better understand why this is such an appealing book series. I do think that the blurb of this book series, the idea that there's dragons and that there's a rebellion, all that sounds great, and it is all horribly executed. But I would love to hear everyone else's thoughts on this. I must say, I'm tired. I've read too many of these books. I've just seen the hype kind of spiral out of control, and I still can't figure out how we got here. Let me just do my usual. Who is this book for? Well, if you like the series and you don't have any of the issues that I do, then I guess you'll like Onyx Storm. It is a continuation of the story that we've been telling. If you like all the unnecessary angst, as well as the dragons and hot people with tragic pasts making questionable decisions, then this book will give you more of what you want. No judgment. Well, okay, some judgment, but we all have our comfort reads. Who is this book not for? If you want solid world building, if you want compelling pacing, if you want characters that grow in ways that make sense, or a fantasy that just takes itself a little more seriously but in the right way, then you should probably stay away. Far away. You should probably stay far, far away from this book and the rest of the series. I hated Onyx Storm, but I read it. I will, of course, be reading the next one in the series, and I really would love it if my tone could change significantly when I do read the next one, although I think that will be much more dependent on the book changing and not so much on me changing. I don't think I'm suddenly going to find this quality of writing all that more enjoyable, but we will see. And please let me know in the comments your thoughts on this book. And again, please let me know in the comments what's appealing about these when there's just so much cringiness about them. I would love to know. But don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.